Hi, I'm so sorry.
No worries. I'm a social media director and I'm messing so we're all just doing our best. It's good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you too. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you these days?
I am luckily enough in Sag Harbor in Long Island at my parents' house, so I cannot complain about anything.
That sounds great.
And
Well,
are you in the city?
yes, I'm in the city, also at my parents' house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both regressing a little bit.
Yes, but also really can't complain about too much. Here, I'm going to kick it off with just
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about your job as an executive editor?
Sure. So I've been at Ballantine for about 5 years. And my job is essentially I'm an acquiring editor, which means that I acquire books for Ballantine, which means I read submissions from agents. I mostly acquire nonfiction, though I also work on fiction as well. And so my job is really to assess the submissions I get in, decide if I want to pursue them, and then take them to my bosses and see if everyone's on board, and then move on from there, hopefully to acquisition. And then after that is a whole, editing, working on marketing publicity, on cover copy, seeing the book all the way through to publication. So that is basically what I do here.
And Sarah, for anyone who might not know, because the imprint system, I feel like baffles people who don't work in publishing, my parents very much included.
Yeah.
Ballantine. Like we say, like this is the Random House account, Random House group. Ballantine is such an amazing imprint, and so many of our incredible books that we post about here are part of Ballantine. Tell us about Ballantine.
Sure. So yes, it is incredibly confusing, and I won't endeavor to try to explain it fully here, but Ballantine is essentially an imprint that is within the Random House group. And we are the more commercial arm of the Random House group, which means we publish books. Basically, we are just looking to publish books for a really wide audience. And we believe we publish books for every reader. So we have, we publish literary fiction, we publish commercial fiction, we have thrillers, we have romantic comedies, we have debut novels from, an incredibly wide range of authors. And on the nonfiction side, we're looking to do the same, which is to publish a really wide range of books to the widest possible audience. So we are looking for sort of the best and brightest in their category, and looking at how we can publish the book in the biggest way possible to have the biggest reach. So we're often, we publish everybody from Danielle Steele to Lee Child. We also just published a debut novel by my author, Kyle McCarthy, who's a literary fiction writer, Frances Cha, who her debut novel, If I Had Your Face, just came out a few months ago, is in the New York Times Book Review. So we're really it's a huge range of books for, everybody. We like to think we're publishing for everybody.
And because I ignore all the questions that I wrote behind, which is why I'm looking up because they're here, I start talking about the books because you already just named some of my favorite books of the year. Talk to me about some of the amazing books that you have already helped shepherd into the world this year.
Sure. Well, I feel incredibly lucky to work with the most wonderful authors. One of my favorite books, and Sophie, I know you've been such a wonderful fan of this book, is Linda Holmes' debut novel, EVVIE DRAKE Starts Over, which I published and came out in hardcover last summer and is currently in paperback right now. Linda.
And she's here.
She's here. Oh my God. Hi, Linda. That's so nice of her. Linda was somebody I had been a longtime fan of because of her podcast, NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour, which she hosts currently. But I had listened to every episode, huge fan. And she started talking on air about the novel she was working on. And once I figured out who her literary agent was, I proceeded to stalk her. I think I emailed her like every week for months to say, please make sure you send this novel to me when it's in. And so she did. And we actually ended up winning a big auction because I was not the only one interested in the book. And Linda, that book has just been a dream, start to finish. Linda is the very best author to work with. Her agent is the very best. The team has been wonderful. And, we've had so much success with it. And, not to put pressure on Linda, who's in this Instagram Live, but we're all very excited for whatever she wants to do next. So that's one I really love. And I know another favorite, yours, Sophie, another book that just came out earlier this year is Here for It, Nonfiction, a book of essays by Eric Thomas, who some of you might know from his Elle.com columns. And he wrote about, basically it's a memoir and essays about growing up Black, queer, Christian, and the way in which all those identities intersect. And he is, as Sophie can attest, the most wonderful, and his book is extraordinary.
Yeah, like we all just need more Eric in our lives in general. Like follow him on Twitter, like he does on Instagram. A lot of people obviously I feel like come to us for book recommendations, people outside the industry. And those are two books that I've been recommending to people. And I just say, like, I wish I hadn't read these before quarantine, because both books are perfect books to just make you feel good right now.
Absolutely.
For the first time.
Yeah. They're just smart. They're really smart. But they also are going to make you feel hopeful in a certain way. And they are filled with Linda's book is a novel. The characters are kind, real people. And Eric's book, you just read it. It's not only funny, it's incredibly moving. And he himself is just sort of goodness personified. And so I'm seeing someone is asking Eric's last name. It's Eric Thomas. His name is R. Eric Thomas, and the book is Here for It. Mm-hmm. And the other book I was talking about is Linda Holmes's EVVIE Drake Starts Over, which just came out in paperback 2 weeks ago, I believe. So
yeah, and for everyone, when you look on Instagram Live or in Instagram Stories later, all the graphics are of the book covers that we're talking about are right there, so you can look them up afterwards. I would love to hear a little bit about how you got into publishing and became a little bit about how you became an editor and your process.
Sure. So it's such a cliche, but I, like probably 99% of people in book publishing, was just a total book nerd from the minute I could read. So every photograph of me when I was little is with me with a book in my hand. So it's a cliche, but it's the truth. And then in college, like everyone else too, I was an English major. And I was lucky enough to grow up in New York, and I know a lot of people don't sort of have access to book publishing. I did know about it as a career, and, had my eyes set on trying to get a job in book publishing. And I was lucky enough out of school to get an editorial assistant position at a different publisher at Grand Central Publishing. And it was kind of, I got it very quickly after graduating, thinking, I'll see what it's like. And then quickly figured out that it really was the right fit for me, and ended up staying there for 8 years until I joined Ballantine in 2015. So,
wow. So you've only worked at 2 places.
I only worked at 2 places. And I've been very, very blessed to have amazing bosses, to really learn so much. And it was just one of those things that I started in the editorial assistant position. And I remember like 3 months later looking at my mom and being like, this is the job. Like, this is the right job for me. So it's not been a circuitous route. It's been a pretty straight line.
I love that. I mean, I think that's wonderful. I think there are certain jobs. I think that's something that you hear a lot from people who work in our industry is, I was that bookish kid. This is something I really found solace in as a child. And there are certain career paths where that thing that's within you as a child just sort of goes like that into your career. And I think that's really lovely.
Yeah, Sophie, I know you read a ton for pleasure, but I think one of the only downsides of this job sometimes is that I don't get to read as much for pleasure as I would like, because I'm often reading for work, which is wonderful. But it's sort of an irony of this job that the thing that I love to do so much is actually something I find it harder to do, because I'm often, I have a big pile of things to read.
I think
professionally.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
What is one of your favorite parts of the job?
There are a lot of favorite parts of the job. I think what I love specifically about my role, in that I sit as primarily editor of nonfiction at a commercial publishing house, and who also gets to work on fiction as well, is I just get to sort of engage in so many different things. So a proposal could come in about, it could be prescriptive nonfiction about, I published a book called Burnout, which was about women and science and the science of stress. And so one day I'll be working on that. The next day I'll be working with Eric on his essays, with Linda on her novel. Kyle McCarthy's Everyone Knows How Much I Love You, which just came out 2 weeks ago, was an entirely different novel, much darker, quite literary. So to use my brain in those different ways and to engage with so many different people and so many different ideas, there's never a sameness to anything. It's every day is different, and I get to engage so widely in so many different ideas. And it's not just what comes into me. I'm constantly reading and hearing about books that my colleagues are working on. So, you know, it's not a case where I get in 20 submissions about the next big diet craze, and that's all I'm reading. I'm reading so widely, and that to me is a really wonderful part of the job.
That's a really cool part of the imprint you're at. That's really cool. I know that we have a lot of comments coming in from people who are looking to write books, looking to submit. So what do you look for when you're evaluating a submission? Like, what really draws you to a book, makes you stop?
Yeah. So I feel like this answer probably always gets some eye rolls because people think, you know, we're sugarcoating our answer. But the truth of the matter is, it is so much about the voice on the page for me. And it is truly a subjective business, which is complicated. So something I respond to doesn't mean that somebody else would respond to. But for me, the voice on the page, meaning something is beautifully written, it's laugh out loud funny, something makes me cry, or it's somebody who I've never heard from. It's a point of view that feels really fresh or unique. I will say that because I do work at Ballantine, which we've discussed is like an imprint in which we're looking for stories that can really reach a wide audience. And on the nonfiction side, I am often looking for platform-driven nonfiction. And that doesn't mean, people sort of think it means only one thing and you have to have 1 million Instagram followers. It really doesn't mean one thing. It just means, it can mean so many different things. It can mean, you know, you have a newsletter and you have a very dedicated but small subscriber list. But, you know, that is something that we can build on. And if you also have a really amazing idea, an amazing voice on the page, those three things combined can be something that we think is terrific. So platform is a complicated thing. And I won't say that that doesn't factor into our decision making, but it also doesn't just mean that you have to be on network television or starring in film. It can mean so many different things, especially now because there's so many different mediums that people can work in.
Oh my God, absolutely. And I think we're slightly apart in age, but not that much. But I'm sure that even just 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the way that you would acquire books and the way that you would look at submissions, the way that the landscape has changed, has adjusted so much in terms of how you think of a platform or what is influence or the way to bring a reader in.
Absolutely. Someone asked, define amazing voice. And that is a great question, which is hard to do. Honestly, I think that amazing voice means something different to other people. For me, honestly, if you catch my attention in the first 5 pages and I can't put it down, you know, it's something where I have 10 things that are competing for my attention in terms of reading. And if I pick something up and for whatever reason, again, humor or emotion or just turn of phrase, if that catches my eye and keeps me reading, that to me is a signal that this is something worth reading. And amazing is such a subjective and silly word, but essentially something that feels like nothing else, or that is kind of hard. It's that cliche again, unputdownable. You know, it's telling you can't walk away even if you tried. And so it can't really quantify it. But I think it's, you know it when you see it, basically.
Listening to you answer this question, it's so funny. I feel like most of the people I've done this with have been authors. And I'm like, wait, how do I know this as a reader? It's the same question.
Yeah, you know if you're going to love something pretty early on. I mean, books surprise you, and you can, if you stick with something for, you know, I've definitely been somebody who's read a novel for pleasure and like read halfway through and not been in love. And then by the end, I love it. But I do think you sort of know from the beginning of reading, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, if this is going to be for you. You just sort of know that. And it is something that you develop. You know, my boss, Jennifer Hershey, I know early on when I started working for her, said to me, like, as you get more experience in this business, you get more confident in knowing your own taste And that is something I've always, you know, taken to heart. This is all I have is myself. And obviously it depends on second readers. And I try to think beyond myself in terms of what will appeal. I'm not publishing only for myself, but I have to trust my gut in a certain way. And as you read more widely and you have more years in this business, you sort of start to trust yourself more about what really is catching your eye, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And it is interesting, certainly. I've been at the company for almost 5 years now. And so it's interesting how, as an employee at a publishing house, you start to sort of come to know that you're going to like a certain editor's books.
Yeah.
Like, for example, this made complete sense because the are on your graphic card are 3 of my favorite books I've read this year. I love the Kyle McCarthy. I love R. Thomas. I love Linda Holmes. I love so many books on our list, but those are 3 that just, it wasn't in my job description to read them, just in my picked them up and loved them. It's just obviously a taste thing, but it's the same thing of taste and of curation, but it is interesting to see that.
Absolutely. And I think obviously there have been a lot of conversations about, you know, representation in book publishing. And I'll be first to admit that there's a lot of work to be done. We have a lot of work to do. And when I say that I sit here and it's all subjective, I don't mean to suggest that, again, that I'm only publishing for myself or people who look like me. But it is true that there's no science to this business. I think that is the fundamental sort of thing to know, that there's no formula when we're trying to figure out what we want to publish. Yes, we have data and we run P&Ls and things like that to try to give us a sense of, you know, what else is sold similarly, but it's really about passion at the end of the day. And what I always feel like is what the one rule I live by is you cannot publish cynically. So you might see that something has real sales merit. You might totally understand who the audience is and how this book could sell copies. But as the editor, if you don't have passion for it or really believe in it in some way, I don't believe you're the right person to champion it, because that's what you're doing. You are the book's cheerleader. Other than the author and the agent, you, especially as an editor in-house, meaning my job in the publishing department is to get other people excited about the book. And I really believe that you cannot publish something only because you see sales merit and don't actually believe in it, and you're just publishing it cynically. So that to me is something that I think is incredibly important.
I love that sentiment. What's something that you're really excited about right now that's coming up?
I have a lot that I'm excited about. I'm currently working on a second novel. I did not publish the first novel. An author named Annie Hartnett, who wrote a really beloved first novel called Rabbit Cake, that I know was a big indie bestseller. The author, Annie, used to be a bookseller at an independent bookstore. And I read her second novel. I fell in love with it. It is quirky and funny and warm-hearted. It has sort of Kevin Williams overtones. I found it had sort of John Irving qualities to it. I think she's such a special writer, and I'm really excited to have her on the list. I also just recently acquired, and this unfortunately won't be out in the world for quite a bit, but I just acquired a memoir by Yamiche Alcindor, who is the PBS NewsHour White House correspondent.
So excited about this one.
And she is amazing. I think a lot of people know her from her work as a White House reporter, and, you know, being at the press conferences and doing that job. What this memoir is going to reveal is her personal story. She's a Haitian American woman who grew up in Miami, and sort of the route that she took in her own personal and professional life to get her where she is today. And I think it's going to be an unbelievable story. She's fantastic. She's definitely needs to, you know, she's a little busy right now. So the book isn't going to come out for a bit, but I've been a fan of hers for so many years and was really thrilled to acquire that for Valentine.
Good. I'm so excited about that. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm going to leave it on one more question just because you bring so much passion to this. I would love, do you have any advice for aspiring editors out there who might be watching?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I would suggest is that you read as widely as you can. And I think it's also really important to try to read beyond your own area of interest. I think a lot of people come out of college really hoping to work. I know I was this way. You know, you want to work on literary fiction or, you know, Pulitzer Prize winning, National Book Award winning, and that's wonderful. But I think it's really important to read widely. If you tend to only read nonfiction, read fiction. If you read genre fiction, try to read literary fiction. If you've never read sci-fi, maybe just take, you know, a shot at something. I would also suggest looking at the New York Times bestseller list, the USA Today bestseller list. Look at what's popular, see and sort of familiarize yourself with what America is reading, so to speak. And I think having sort of a wide lens and understanding of the market beyond your very narrow focus of interest. I think as an editor, it's great to have a real specialty and area of interest, but I think especially for people just starting out who are going to be most likely assisting other people, it's really great to read widely and to familiarize yourself with what is popular, successful, what's getting attention in the market, and to try to push yourself to see maybe there are categories you never thought you would like that you actually really do. I will say that I'm not sure I would have told you starting out 12 years ago that I would be working on a lot of pop culture nonfiction. And I'm so happy that I do. I really love it, but it's something that I kind of grew to work on and come to know that I love. That I don't know that right after graduating from school, I would have said that that's what I would be doing. So I think that's my best advice, I think, that I have.
Honestly, that is phenomenal advice, I think, for any job that you're going publishing. I started as a publicist and I now obviously work in digital marketing. And I think that is great advice for any entry level or further publishing job. That's really great. Sara, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was so great to see your face and to talk to you. Sorry for the late arrival or the technical difficulties.
Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.